What's up guys, welcome back to the PL pod right here on Daniel Talks Football, and welcome back to another video. If you're watching this as a highlight, if you are, click the subscribe button, like the video, comment down below, go over and follow the Instagram and the TikTok Daniel Talks Football on both, and we'll get straight into this Chelsea keep, loan or sell, that's the other one. We've got 41 players I think are counted to go through because you lot have a massive squad, so I'm not going to waste any time because this will be a monster video anyway. Gabriel Slanina.
Keep.
Okay. Is that as a backup keeper possibly?
Yeah, keep as a backup or a third keeper, depending on what we do with Marcus Bettinelli.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll cut to him in a second. Kepa Arrizabalaga.
Sell if you can.
Okay.
I still don't think he's good enough. Even though he has the best save percentage in the Premier League right now, just not good enough.
What's gone wrong with Kepa then? Because this is one I do want to dig into. World record keeper, and yeah, what's happened?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot in terms of just characteristics, not the biggest in size, so that's already a disadvantage in the Premier League. We see De Gea constantly struggle with crosses as well, but what De Gea is one of the best shot stoppers in the world, and Kepa is not at that level, so especially with long shots. I mean, the Yuri Tielemans goal in the FA Cup final,
Yes.
Mendy gets to that every single time. Just because it was, 30 yards out or something, and Kepa almost got there. Mendy, who's like 3-4 inches taller than him, would probably get to it. But
maybe.
even though he's been really good recently, Kepa, especially with his distribution and stuff as well, I would sell him if we can recoup some of the 17 million that we paid for him, and hopefully find a new, better goalkeeper.
How much would you want? 30?
Yeah, if we can get around 30, sell him. If it's anything below that, then keep him, give him another year, or sell Mendy, which we'll get to, sign another first choice goalkeeper, and then Kepa's your backup again.
All right. You've already mentioned him, Bettinelli.
Yeah, I think it's a seller. His contract expires in the summer, so sell it really isn't an option. It's either renew or release, and I think we can release him. Again, he's just fits the homegrown spot. He just fills the homegrown spot, which is mainly the role of the third choice goalkeeper. But as we know, Chelsea have a lot of English players in their team, so we're not really short on academy talent who can fill those homegrown spots.
Absolutely not. No. And then you have touched on him, Edouard Mendy. What's going on here?
Yeah, he's another one who I would be happy selling, just because his contract situation is also up in the air. And off too many times at Chelsea we've seen players perform really well. We have an opportunity to sell them at a good time, and then we keep them for another few years and then struggle to sell them, aka Jorginho, who somehow we've managed to sell.
Yes.
But there's been plenty of players like that, Zappacosta's of the world. So I would, especially when we need to balance the books. I'm sure there are plenty of mid-table teams or other teams around Europe, maybe in the Europa League and stuff like that, who would love to have a goalkeeper like Edouard Mendy. And his story is absolutely special. He was incredible in our Champions League winning campaign. I think you just say thank you for that, and you're gonna be probably a legend just for what you did in that season. Your story is going to go down in the history books of football, but it might be time to sell you.
I mean, yeah, I'll take my Leicester happily. We need a keeper, so yeah, you can come to us.
That'll be 80 million for you guys.
80 million? I thought the rule was we robbed you of the money. We mugged off you guys. So we'll have 15 pence in a packet of 15 pence in a packet of Walker's crisps. I think seems like the kind of deal you lot would do. Benoit Badiashile.
That's an instant keep. I don't think we need to go into that.
No, I think that's an obvious one. Thiago Silva, again, just signed a new contract.
Keep.
Yeah.
Keep and try and clone him.
Keep and clone him just 20 years
Yes.
younger. Yeah, all right, there we go. Trevor Chalobah.
That's a little more interesting. I think with how injury prone Fofana is and how shit Koulibaly is, he's a keep as well.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. I don't blame you for that one at all. Chilwell, a man I know very well.
Keep. He's our best left back.
Fair enough. Next up we have Reece James. Keep.
Give him a lifetime contract. Everything.
Yep. Koulibaly.
Clone him as well.
Clone Reece James, yeah?
Yes, for sure. Not Koulibaly. But Koulibaly is another interesting one. I would be happy with both the keep and the sell. I think on the previous one where we were doing the tier list, I mentioned he can be the next Thiago Silva of the team, in the sense that the experienced one among the younger centre backs who are Badiashile, Chalobah, Fofana, all who are under the age of 23. You do sometimes need that experienced head. So in that sense, I would keep him. But if he gets an opportunity in the Serie A, or if someone else comes in calling for 20-30 million, if you can recoup most of the money, I would be happy to sell him as well.
Fair enough. Club captain Cesar Azpilicueta.
Now that we've signed Malo Gusto, I think it's a sell, or I think we have an agreement with him, like a gentleman's agreement, where we would just let him go for a very small amount. So
yeah, fair enough then. Fair enough.
He's been a legend, but he's past his time.
Off to Barcelona.
Yeah, he can do that. He'd be very good for them.
Cucurella, a man that actually came from Barcelona through Getafe and Brighton.
Yeah, I think with the amount we've bought him for, we will not be able to recoup as much as we would like for it to make sense to sell him. I also think he's still a very good player, just badly out of form, dealing with a lot of issues off the field as well. But I would keep him.
Fair enough. And then Wesley Fofana.
That's a keep as well.
Yeah.
We've spent way too much to even think of selling him right now.
You have. Absolutely. Don't need to tell me. Andre Santos.
Keep and get the work permit ASAP.
Agreed. The man who had the worst acting in his announcement video ever, Enzo Fernandes.
Keep. I don't think anyone's gonna be able to take him off Chelsea. We've given him the life sentence,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have a keep and winning an Oscar for the announcement video, because as I say, it was. If you haven't seen that, please do go check it out. It was a. Yeah, wow! It was those players. If they
you'll see
football,
why. Yeah,
if they quit,
you'll
football,
see why they're footballers and not actors. Yeah.
If mate, no, I disagree. If they quit football, I think they've got a future in acting waiting for them. N'Golo Kante, a man that is closing in on the end of his contract. Do you give him a new one?
Another very interesting one, obviously, with his injury record. I would give him a new contract if it is a highly incentivized contract, in the sense that you make X number of appearances, you get that much money, like a base salary of a lower base salary, because right now he's, I think, our second highest earner. So bring him well below that. Give him a base salary, but highly incentivized, in the sense that you make 5 appearances, you get that much, and 10 appearances, that much, that kind of thing. But we all know how good he can be on his day, and he doesn't even need a lot of match fitness to reach his best. At the beginning of the season, he didn't travel with Chelsea for their preseason because he doesn't have the COVID vaccine, so he could not travel to America, which is a whole conversation in itself.
Yes.
But him and Ruben Loftus-Cheek had to stay back. But then once the league started, we're instantly in the team, and he had some really great games, and we thought, oh my God, Conte is back. We're going to win it all this season. And then he got injured and has been injured for almost 6 months now.
Yeah.
So a highly incentivized contract, or else sadly release, even though I love him to bits.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to tell me. I know with Kante, watching him, the 15-16 season, I look over to my right-hand side now as of recording, and I can just see him in that poster off to the right-hand side with the Premier League trophy slap bang in the middle. He was a man that won our hearts, and I remember watching him that season. He was everywhere. I remember our head of recruitment, Steve Walsh at the time, joked that our midfield had Danny Drinkwater in the middle with Kante either side. He was a player that I fell in love with very quickly after a move from France, and
yeah, he's so good that he made Drinkwater look like a 30 million player.
Mate, Drinkwater was a 30 million player. His connection with Jamie Vardy was elite, and then he went to Chelsea and forgot what he looked like. Mateo Kovacic.
Another very interesting one. So he has his contract going up next summer. So he's right now got 14 months left on his contract. He's 28 or 29. I don't think I would renew his contract,
Hmm.
and so this would be our last opportunity to sell him. So I think he's going to be a very hard sell, even though I really love him. I think he's one of the best ball carrying midfielders in the world. But with the Enzo Fernandez signing, with Andre Santos, Carney Chukwuemeka, and also the fact that we are still interested in a high profile midfielder in the summer,
Hmm.
I think it might be time to sell Kovacic. Again, going back to the Mendy argument, we need to start selling players at a time where their price is still, a good price.
Yeah.
So I think he would be a sacrifice in that sense.
How much would you want?
So we only bought him for, I think, 45 million
Hmm.
from Real Madrid. So anything above, like anything between 20 and 30 million would be acceptable, given that he has only 1 year left in his contract.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, at 28, I think that would probably be a fair price as well. Christian Pulisic.
That's a sell. Too injury prone and not good enough when fit.
How much would you want?
That's a harder one because his market value isn't very high. Again, 30 million maybe.
30?
I would be happy with anything just because we have so many attacking talents.
Uh-huh.
That we do need like to desperately offload some people. And I think one thing about the Todd Bowley regime is that they're not afraid to sell people for cheap. Timo
No.
Werner, we sold him back to Leipzig for cheap. We weren't scared to loan Lukaku rather than sell him.
No. Yeah.
So they're not at all worried about selling players for cheap if it's the best for the squad, because right now we have a completely bloated squad. I mean, we said 41 players or something.
Yeah, it's mental.
So we're gonna have to do a lot of deals that aren't the best price in terms of value that we can get, but it's just about getting them out the door at this point.
I mean, I think at this point, you bid what other sides are bidding for Bellingham and you throw Pulisic in there. Sweeten the deal.
Yeah.
Go, here's Pulisic plus 100 million. We'll have Jude Bellingham, please. And they'll probably take the deal. So there's where Pulisic's next move is. You heard it here first on the Daniel Talks Football podcast. Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
Another interesting one. It depends on how much we spend in the summer, and if we need to use an academy sale to help balance the books a lot more. Because the thing with how FFP works is academy players sold are 100% profit,
Mhm.
and which is not the case where you sell someone who you've bought on a 5-year deal and sell him
course, yeah.
with 3 years remaining on his contract and stuff. So academy players like him and Conor Gallagher are extremely valuable to the accounting books.
Yeah.
I still think he is a very good player. We saw that in the West Ham game as well. He was injured for like 2 months and he came back into the midfield, and some of his driving runs, still a bit rusty of course, but some of his driving runs, what he offers in terms of his physicality and height, is something we can definitely use as a squad player. He's also not someone who is shouting at the manager demanding starts. So a
No.
very good solid squad player who you can just put him in whenever needed in the cup games, whenever you have injuries, which Chelsea have way too many at all points of the year. So I would look to keep him, but if we do spend a lot of money in the summer again, then a very easy way to balance the books, and clubs like Newcastle and stuff are interested, and were interested in January as well. So there's definitely suitors for a player like Loftus-Cheek out there.
Mhm. Fair enough. Mudryk, keep.
Yep.
Yep, no other option. Mason Mount. Now, this probably will be a keep, but I know there's a lot of criticism at the moment. So, if the answer is keep, run me through the stuff going on with Mason Mount.
Yeah, it's a really toxic place out there in the Mason Mount sphere of the world.
Mhm.
I do think the criticism is extremely fair, but the abuse is not. 2-time Chelsea Player of the Year. He's been at Chelsea since he was 8 years old. Instrumental in our Champions League win. Instrumental in getting top 4 under Frank Lampard. Instrumental in our success under Tuchel as well. Every manager who he has played under absolutely loves Mason Mount, and I think a big factor of why he's been really poor this season is because he's just burnt out. He's played over 160 games since he like came back to Chelsea, which was 3 seasons ago, and
Hmm.
he's played the most games for Chelsea in his first season. In his second season, he is almost always on the pitch for England, except towards the end of the World Cup. But we saw at the Euros, he was always on the pitch, and people were obviously questioning why, which isn't his fault. It's the manager's fault if you're playing him. But yeah, it's an easy keep, of course, for me. The performances, again, as we said with Cucurella, he needs time away from the pitch just to regain his confidence, work hard in training, get completely healthy again, because he's the kind of player that will 100% play with knocks and stuff for the team,
Hmm.
just because the team needs him. So just give him some time away from the limelight, some time to regain his confidence, and we hope that by the end of the season we see the Mason Mount that we all know, banging in goals and assists for Chelsea again. He's the first player since Eden Hazard to have 10 plus goals and assists in the Premier League, which was last season. And those are stats that you can't deny when you are a team that struggles to score goals, and he is your main creator and main goal threat in the season. Like, I don't get a lot of the abuse. Like, he's been really poor this season, but he's been so good previous to that. He's the one that deserves some slack.
Yeah.
Like, there's other people in the squad who get slated for performances just as bad in Mason Mount, and that is justified because that's they're consistently shit,
Hmm.
versus Mason Mount has been one of the most consistent performers apart from this season, where I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. He has been really shit, and his decision making has been really, really poor at times.
Hmm.
But we've seen what he can do, so yeah, it's a pretty easy keep for me.
Hmm. Fair enough. Dennis Zakaria, obviously, this isn't really a keep, loan, or sell. Is this a buy or send back?
I would, if Ruben, if they're planning on selling a Conor Gallagher or Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I would keep, because again, Zakaria is that kind of really good squad player who you can has a lot of good attributes for the Premier League, especially.
Hmm.
So if you're selling someone like Ruben Loftus-Cheek or Gallagher, then buy. But other than that, I think we can do a lot. I think we should focus on buying world-class midfielders rather than squad players when we already have the squad players.
Hmm. So send back then.
So yeah, send back unless we sell the squad players and need squad players.
Fair enough. Hakim Ziyech.
Easy sell.
Hmm. Yeah.
Almost happened as well,
Yeah,
but
it did. It
that's
almost
a
went to
whole other
PSG
story.
before. Yeah, that's one we'll leave for another day because I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories around that one.
Yeah.
Conor Gallagher.
I would keep him and resist the urge of banking straight 40 million profits on him, just because he's the kind of player who will go to a Newcastle, tear it up there, and all Chelsea fans will be like, why did we sell Conor Gallagher? He's
Hmm.
going to be another, not that I'm saying he's the caliber of like De Bruyne or Salah and stuff, but he is one that could hurt the future,
Hmm.
and he's already at our club. In some games he's been really, really phenomenal. In other games you've really seen the deficiencies in his game. Still only 22 years old. There's a player there, and I would hate to see him go and thrive elsewhere.
Hmm. Kai Havertz.
This is a controversial one. I think with how consistently poor he's been this season and the season before as well,
Hmm.
I would sell,
Okay.
but I can't see too many great strikers who we would be interested in. I mean, if we can get an Aussie man in, that would be great, but we'd have to overpay. And again, I have PTSD from the last time we signed the top scorer of the
Well,
Serie A.
Vlahovic could be
So
available.
yeah, I don't think he's too much of an upgrade on Kai Havertz as well.
Okay.
I think he's not been too great for Juventus
He
as well. I
hasn't,
don't
no.
think he's yeah. So yeah, I think I would like Ivan Toney has been really good. I think he could be really
Okay.
good and bring I think in the last episode we spoke about how Chelsea, like some of the wingers Chelsea have signed, might thrive with a more physical number nine. And Tony, his link up play is really good. He can do the physical element, and also technically he's very good as well. So it depends on if we're in the market for a striker or not. Because I don't think Chelsea can spend another 300 or 600 million next year. We're gonna have to be a lot more smarter in areas that we prioritize, and I think midfield is going to be a big priority. I don't know if we can then buy another world class striker
Mhm.
after that. But like if it were up to me, I would look to sell Kai Havertz while we still can.
Okay, Carney Chukwuemeka.
Keep.
Keep, not loan.
No, just because I think now that the midfield is going to be, if we're selling Kovacic, we've already sold Jorginho. With the midfield getting a little lighter in terms of the experienced players, we're going to need like someone like him, especially like if we sell Loftus-Cheek as well. I think there's going to be a heavy turnaround in our midfield. I think when we were counting up the players, you even made a comment of, "Holy shit, you guys have so many midfielders."
Yep.
I think a lot of them are going to be leaving this summer, and
Mhm.
so I think he's going to get a lot more game time. And even towards the end of the season, now that he's fit again, I think he will be getting a lot more game time.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Harvey Vale, I presume this will be a loan.
Mhm. Yeah, this will be a loan. Unfortunately, his loan to Hull City did not go very well, and he's back with our under 21s, where he actually has 3 assists in 3 games.
Mad.
So showing that he is way too good for the under 21 level is just finding the right loan move for him, which we did not do this time. So hopefully we get it right this second time.
Hmm. Amari Hutchinson.
Unfortunately, his loan move to, I think it was
Yes.
Huddersfield, yeah, broke down.
It
They got
was.
Albrighton instead, right?
It was. Was it? It was somebody in the Midlands. I can find out for you now.
Birmingham
It.
City.
It was somebody in the Midlands. Who was it in the? It was West Brom.
West Brom. Oh yeah, West Brom.
Um.
Yeah, unfortunately that didn't pan out. They got Mark Albrighton
It did.
instead. So yeah, he's again way too good to be in the PL2 right now. Just not good enough for the Chelsea first team.
No.
I'm really happy he got his debut, although it was against Man City, and making your debut against one of the best teams in the world is hard enough, especially when you're playing for Chelsea, who were absolutely awful in both those games.
Hmm.
So he hasn't shown enough to, warrant a spot in the first team, especially after all the new signings we made. So I think it's a pretty obvious loan.
Hmm. Fair enough. Lewis Hall.
Um, Another very interesting one. I would keep just because Ben Chilwell is injury prone, and Lewis Hall is also a midfielder. Like that's his preferred position, so he can act as left back depth or midfield depth as well. And has shown that he's easily ready for this level. Like he's been really, really promising when he has played for us. So I would keep him just for the experience of being around in first team training, and also the backup of if Chilwell or Cucurella get injured, you have a solid backup option, and
Hmm.
you're not losing out there.
No, fair enough. On to the attackers now. Before we then move on to the players that you currently have loaned out. Aubameyang.
Um, that's sell, release, whatever you can do to get him
Yeah.
off the books.
Just get him gone. Felix,
Mhm.
obviously this isn't a keep sell loan, or is this a buy or is this a get let back? If it's a buy, what would be the max you would buy him for?
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting because he has been one of our best players in the 2 games that he has played. And so if he continues, it's hard to choose right now whether I would keep him or let him go back to Atletico, not without knowing how he does for the rest of the season. If he keeps it up, I think you have to just give Atletico Madrid a blank check and, ask them to name their price, because this guy is a world-class talent on his day
Hmm.
and still very young, fits the age profile of the squad. But at the same time, without knowing how he's going to be for the rest of the season, and knowing that we do have Christopher and Kunku coming from Leipzig,
Hmm.
who both players love operating in areas. So I think it might have to be a give back to Atletico, because we know we have Nkunku coming.
Okay,
But again, if he blows it out of the park and helps Chelsea win the Champions League, then we have to keep him.
we have to keep him. And then you obviously have sort of said a blank checkbook. There probably would have to be a top limit of that, 120 million maybe. What would be your absolute max send? 100 million,
Given
even if
that
he was incredible.
Atletico signed him for what, 120-ish million.
Exactly.
And he's been there for like 2 or 3 years already. So I would hope it's not anywhere around that amount, especially now that we can amortize it over 8.5 years. So if it's, I think the upper limit I would go to, given that Nkunku's also coming for 60 million, is maybe 80 million.
Okay.
I wouldn't go anywhere near the 100 million mark
That's
because
fair enough.
I don't see the value. I mean, obviously the value in the player, but in terms of him being at Atletico for 2 seasons or 3 seasons already, and them signing him for 120, I don't see that being a good deal for us.
Fair enough. Raheem Sterling?
I think you keep him as the experienced head of our attack. We all know there's a great player there. We saw it under Tuchel. We saw it for England as well. He does pretty well. And Southgate relies on him because of his experience. Like, we have Mudryk, who's 22. We have Madueke, who's 20. Nkunku, who is also young, I think 24. And will need to adapt to the league. Broja, who's young. A lot of young players. And so he kind of will be the experienced head that people will kind of look up to. So I would keep him.
Okay, and you've literally just touched on him there, Armando Broja.
Yeah, he's a keep as well. Was doing really well. Really fighting Kai Havertz for that spot. When I was talking about selling Kai Havertz, I completely forgot about Broja as well, which would have been really interesting if he was still fit. I think he would have 100% taken Kai Havertz's starting spot, and I'm hopeful that his recovery with his ACL is going well and continues to go well, and he can be fit and ready for the start of next season because he was really looking dangerous.
And then we've got 2 current Chelsea players left. David Datro Fofana.
The plan was to loan him in January before Broja signed, and we realized, shit, we have Kai Havertz, who is not great, and we need someone who can compete with him. So I think he's definitely going to be loaned out in the summer if Fofana is fit.
Yeah.
Not Fofana, Broja.
If Broja's fit, yeah. Madueke.
I would keep him as well, especially if we're selling Hakim Ziyech. He is, again, going to be the only right winger we technically would have in the squad, like natural right winger. So I think he could be a pretty good option. Not necessarily like someone who I would start every single game, but someone who has the ability to change the game and has the ability to offer, again, different crossing angles with his left foot from the right hand side.
Are you 100% sure you don't want to loan him to Leicester? Just want to check.
That actually might be a good loan. If we do loan him out, it would be definitely a good loan. If we sign Felix and Nkunku, then I could see it maybe.
Great.
I wouldn't mind that. Develop him.
I'm getting my hopes up now for the next few months before it doesn't end up happening. And now we'll move to the players that you do currently have out on loan. We'll start off with a man that knows all about the curse of the number 9 shirt. It's Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah, I actually had forgotten about him before you had told me about the list.
Forgot.
Yeah, so easy. I don't think we're going to be able to sell him, so I think he's going to be another loan back to Inter. I think there was talk about that happening last summer, but hasn't really been playing too much. I mean, he's got back into the team now because he's back from injury, but he hasn't, lit the world on fire. Or I'm scared actually that Inter might not want to loan him again. Yeah, which would be scary. I hope so, man. I hope so. We'll pay you to just keep him there.
The fact you're paying your club, that would be mad. Gusto, that's a keep?
Yeah, that's an easy keep because we had to loan him back this year to get the deal done.
Fair enough. Hudson-Odoi.
He would be a sell for me. Hasn't really impressed for Leverkusen to the extent that we would have hoped of. When we thought of, he's going to tear it up in the Bundesliga, but he really hasn't. He's had really good games, of course, but not good enough to warrant a spot back at Chelsea. And again, academy player, we would get 100% of the profits of the sale. Still young, so we could fetch, I think, 30 odd million for him. He's one I would look to sell.
He's a player, I think, when Bayern were really interested a couple of summers back and were offering some big money. Looking back on it now, we really should have taken them up on that because he just hasn't turned into what everyone thought he would.
Yeah, it's easy to do that in
It is,
hindsight,
of
but we
course.
didn't think he would get a near career-ending injury because at that moment he was tearing it up and scoring goals in the Europa League, and that one injury literally ruined his career,
It
which
did.
is really really sad to see for someone who was 18 at the time.
Next up, we have Ampadu.
Yeah, this is another person who I think still hasn't figured out what his best position is.
No.
Um, but he has been pretty impressive on his loan at Serie A, and I think he's a player who does suit the Italian league as well, because both his loan went to Venezia, and his current loan is also going really well. So while his performances have been good, and he is a very versatile player who is pretty useful in a lot of situations,
Hmm.
I think I just don't think he's good enough for Chelsea, or has proven that he can be good enough to be anything more than a squad player,
Okay.
and we already have a few of those. Again, another academy player who, if we sell, we can bank all the profits. So yeah, I would look to sell him as well,
Okay, fair enough.
and the
Malang
loan cycle for him
and the loan
basically.
cycle finally, yes.
Yeah.
Another player that's on the loan cycle, Malang Sarr.
I would sell him. So we, it's really funny. We loaned Malang Sarr out to AS Monaco. He has a
Hmm.
clause in his contract. I don't know what the clause is in terms of if he plays X number of games, they have to sign him. But I don't know what that number of games is.
Okay.
But we surely haven't done ourselves too much harm, given that we just bought their other starting center back in
No.
Badia Shield. So now they might have to play Malang Sarr a lot more. So that situation is pretty funny to me. But we didn't buy him. We got him for
You got him for
free.
free, didn't you? Yeah.
Even though he's not an academy player, again, we have no transfer outlay on him. So selling him would be a good profit.
And then last but not least, Bakayoko.
The legend, I don't, I have no idea how he's still at the club, but his contract expires in the summer, and I am counting down the days for that.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. That sums it up. We'll round off that segment there before we come back to part 3 to figure out how to fix Chelsea.